Okay, so I have added my checkerboard border to two sides, the right and the left side. And then I have made the checkerboard border for the top and the bottom. But before I attach this, you'll notice that it is short. It doesn't go all the way to the end. And that's because I want something different in the corner. I don't want to continue the checkerboard all the way. I mean, I could, and it's not bad, but I feel like there's an opportunity here to do something fun and pull back a little bit from the pattern. And since there's stars in the pattern, I kind of want something that has some of that triangle shape or movement in the corner. But I don't think I want a star. I think instead I'm going to do a pinwheel. I think I'm going to do a pinwheel. Maybe once I get the half square triangles cut, I might want a 4-pointed star out of the half square triangles, which I think is called a friendship star. But those are 9 patches. They have a center block. I think I just want to stick with the pinwheel. I want that movement, and I want to continue with the yellow and blue, just the 2 colors. So I had to figure out what size corner block I'm going to need. Well, that's actually really simple. If I measure the unfinished width of my, here, we'll do this closer, or no, closer here. If I measure the unfinished width of my sashing here, I get to 3.5. You can see that, my piecing is a little off and I'm a little crooked here. But it's 3.5. That's the unfinished size. So the unfinished size of pinwheel needs to be 3.5, and it'll be perfectly square in the corner for 3.5 inch sashing and 3.5 inch sashing. So far, so simple. But a pinwheel is made up of 4 half square triangles. And so basically a pinwheel is like this. If I'm drawing a square, you can see that I do sketch when I do improv. It's obviously not, I'm not sketching the Mona Lisa. This is for my benefit only. So I'm not being too precious with it. A pinwheel is going to have this alternating pattern and be made up of half square triangles. It's actually a really simple kind of a foundational block. But here's the thing. I have absolutely no idea what size of half square triangle I need to get a 3.5 inch here. So let's figure that out. So basically, if I have a half square triangle that's its own block, this is basically a pinwheel is a 4-patch. I'm going to get a colored pencil here so you can kind of see what I'm doing as I'm doing the math here. Now there are cheat sheets online. Why did I pull a white colored pencil? There are cheat sheets online. You could do something like Google pinwheel cheat sheet for quilters, and it'll probably give you the math. But this is fairly straightforward, so I wanted to walk through it with you. So basically, at the end of the day, a pinwheel is a 4-patch. The block is made up of 4 smaller blocks, 4 half square triangles. Now, quilt math would dictate that in order for this whole measurement here to be 3.5, then I'm going to sink 2 1/4-inch seams into this single seam right here. You with me? I have 1 seam, and that 1 seam is going to cost me a 1/2 inch of fabric because it's 2 1/4 inches, 1 on each side, right? So in order to make this 3.5 inches all the way, each one of these needs to be 4 inches. I'm sorry, no. Each one of these needs to be 2 inches. So that this one, 2 inches plus 2 inches equals 4. And then I lose the 1/2 inch in the seam allowance, making it 3.5 inches total. So if I make 4 2-inch half square triangles, well, then I will get a single 3.5 inch pinwheel. Now, keeping in mind that I need 4 of these blocks, that means I need 4 half square triangles times 4 blocks. So I need 16 half square triangles. Now, the next step is that 2-inch half square triangle. So a 2-inch, wow, I just ripped a hole in the paper. So a 2-inch half square triangle, I'm going to go ahead and make that 2-inch half square triangle out of a square. But because this diagonal cuts off more fabric than a straight seam, and because I am notorious at making half square triangles just off, I'm actually going to start with, because normally for a 2-inch half square triangle, you could start with a 2 1/4 or a like a 2 3/8 squares. And if I put 2 3/8 squares together, like facing sides together and sew them at a diagonal, I can get on 2 sides, I can get 2-inch half square triangles. But I'm pretty bad at that. Actually, I am notoriously bad at that. So I'm actually going to cut these bigger. I would typically cut them at 2 1/2. If I'm feeling particularly loosey-goosey about the math, like I might have done it wrong, I'll cut them even just a little bit bigger. So I'm going to cut my squares at 2 3/4. I have plenty of fabric. I'll trim them back. I trim my half square triangles no matter what. Other people don't. Other people cut them super precisely, starch them, you know, all of that kind of stuff. But I've never been able to do that. So I cut them big and trim them always. And so 2 3/4 is what I'm going to cut my my squares of fabric at. And of course, because you get 2 half square triangles out of each, I'm going to need not 16, but divided by 2, 8. So I need 8 2 3/4 inch squares out of the blue and 8 2 3/4 inch squares out of the yellow. And that's the quilt math for a pinwheel. Now, when you're looking at a block like this, a simple block like this, really what you're doing is counting seams. Quilt math is all about counting seams, and the more seams you have, the more complicated it becomes, and the harder it is to kind of like track in your head. But this one's fairly straightforward because at the end of the day, a pinwheel is just a 4-patch.